So my role at Off to Class, as I said, Off to Class is a web product for ESL teachers. We provide ESL teachers with the content they need for their lessons, as well as a student management system where your students can log in and complete homework that you assign to them and review their lesson summaries. And we've also got a powerful placement test. And in developing Off to Class and working at Off to Class, one of my main roles is doing customer support. And I come into contact with ESL teachers all over the world. And many of those ESL teachers are looking into getting into a independent role. So many of them have day jobs at language schools and are looking to transition into an independent role where they've got their own students and they're able to set their own hours and their own schedules and control their own revenue streams. And I deal with teachers that are both looking to run independent ESL businesses online, and I also deal with teachers that are looking to do in-person tutoring. And teachers use Off to Class for both online lessons and in-person tutoring. And so it was in this role at Off to Class that as I was coming into contact with many, many teachers that were looking to transition into an independent role, that I realized that onboarding and converting student leads into paying customers was definitely an area that wasn't getting discussed a lot, and that I felt teachers were somewhat ignoring or weren't paying as much attention to as they should be. So that's where the genesis for today's webinar came from. So first, I'd like to talk a little bit about growth. So any teacher that's getting into independent ESL teaching is obviously the dream or the long-term goal is going to eventually be able to transition into this role on a full-time basis. So working independently full-time, you're going to need a lot of students. So obviously this depends on how many, what your hourly rate is and how many hours per week on average you teach a student. But even if you are teaching at the high end of the pay scale, you're going to need at least 10 to 15 to 20 students to sustain yourself on a full-time basis. So let's look at growth. How do you grow your business? Well, I like to think of it as a product of two numbers. So there's the number of prospective students who trial you. So that's really the number of leads you can generate. The number of students that are going to try you out as a teacher, and B, the percentage of those students that are going to convert. So the percentage of the students that try you out that are going to convert as long-term paying customers. So the funny thing is almost 95% of the teachers I come into contact with are obsessed with A. Almost none of the teachers I come into contact with even discuss B. So most teachers will ask me, do I need a blog? Do I need a website? Should I be getting my students from Twitter? Should I be using AdWords? Should I be using Facebook advertising? Teachers seem to be obsessed with A, but none of them talk about B. And the ironic part is that A is there's no easy answers in A, and you have much more control in B. So when I say there's no easy answers in A is a lot of work. Generating leads, there's no easy answers. You need to use all means necessary. You need to get onto the ground and find student leads however you can, whether it's online or in person. But B, you have much more control of. So when your leads come to you and take a trial lesson or start engaging with you and they're there trying to determine whether you're going to be the right fit for them, B is completely in your control as an independent ESL teacher. A, to a certain extent, is dependent on many outside factors, while B is fully in your control. So although A is a challenge, once students come and trial you as a teacher, you need to be making sure that the percentage of students that convert is as high as possible. So that's what we're going to talk about today, strategies for increasing B. I'm not going to talk too much today about A. That's a subject for another webinar. There are some ideas on how to generate leads that lots of teachers can implement, and lots of teachers have taught us over the months, over the years. But we're going to talk about B today. So that is when a student comes to you and is interested in using your services as a student, how do you sell yourself as the right teacher? And so really that question of converting these trials is what onboarding is all about. That's how I'm using the term onboarding. When a student comes to see you, how do you sell yourself as the right choice in a teacher? And what I would recommend, the strategies that I've seen work the best over the years is teachers that sell themselves based on a personal approach. That is your biggest competitive advantage versus the other options available to students. So most of your adult students who are coming to you looking for a private tutor have been to language schools. So they have a reference point. And what you can sell as a one-on-one tutor is that this isn't going to be like a language school. This is going to be a completely personalized approach. You're going to tailor a learning plan specific to the student's needs, and you're going to deliver a completely customized approach. So one of the keys here is on your trial lesson or in your first interactions with your students, you want to present your students' challenges to them in a very simple manner and show that the approach you're going to take with the learning is very much going to be based around their needs and their deficiencies. You're not going to take a one-size-fits-all approach. You're going to tailor something specific to them. But then the natural question is, we're all very busy people. You have lots of leads coming to you. How do you do this at scale? So how do you offer every student who's interested in your services a personalized approach? And how do you prepare an individual tailored learning plan for every single student that comes to see you? And that's really what at scale means. How do you do this in a repeatable manner that doesn't take too much effort so that you can make the right amount of investment and sell yourself to trial students? Because a certain percentage of students who trial you, no matter what you do, no matter how well you get this approach, are not going to convert as customers. So how do you come in with trial students and really, in a relatively repeatable format, create an individual learning plan? And that's what we're going to show you today. So we've got some pretty cool tools on Off to Class that teachers are using to do exactly this, to create individual learning plans for their prospective students and sell themselves as the right personal approach for the students. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a second here, and I'm going to move over and start up the demo. So I'm not sure if everybody's been to Off to Class before, but I'll just give you a bit of an overview. I'm a co-founder of Off to Class. This is a software tool that I helped develop. We are a tool for teachers, and we have a lot of independent ESL teachers using us as a software service. We are on the lesson library here of Off to Class, and I'm on the teacher page here, and this is the lesson library. And here you have over 500 ESL lessons that are designed to be taught live with students, so in real time with students, whether you're using an online system like the system we're using right now, or whether you're teaching in person and you're both physically sharing your laptop. You'll see that I have a dummy logo up here. This is just a logo that I found on the internet. Usually the Off to Class logo would be here, but the reason I've got the logo here is to show you that we can actually white label Off to Class now and put your logo up in a number of different places. And this is very important when you're starting a new independent business. You want to create some brand recognition, and it can be much more powerful to put your logo here in your learning system than on your website, because at the start of when you develop your website, not a lot of your students are going to be landing on your website. It does take a long time to generate a website that's getting a lot of traffic. So that's just something I wanted to show you. So we are on the lesson library of Off to Class. And where I'm going to go now under this teacher tab here is to the placement test. And this is the tool I was talking about. So this is a placement test that has 100 questions in it. It draws off a bank of 800 questions, so you can assign it multiple times to the same student, and they won't see many repeated questions. It tackles all levels. So the first 20 questions are at the A1 beginner level. The next 20 questions will always be at the A2 elementary level, and so on, all the way up to C1, all the way up to the upper intermediate level. And each question is multiple choice. This is a sample question, and there's always one of the options is always I don't know. And the reason for that is this allows you to assign the test to a student at any level, because if the student answers I don't know 7 times in a row, we cut off the test so that it doesn't get discouraging for the student. And you can assign this test to your prospective students. So if you press this big green Assign Test button, which I'm going to do right now, I'm going to choose to send to a prospective student. So this green button here. And when I do that, I can set up the student account right here. All I need to do is create a little name so that I can remember the student as a teacher, add the student's email, and create a password. And then I can choose the interface language that they'll be using to access Off to Class. So obviously, Off to Class is an English product. The placement test will always be in English. But as far as the buttons and the login form, you can actually customize the interface language by picking your student's L1 here. So you can send this to a student. So that concept of at scale, of something that's repeatable and easy to do, when a prospective comes to you before your trial lesson or before your first interaction, you could actually assign the placement test to this student. And then it will take you about 30 seconds to assign this to your student. And then your student will receive instructions to log into Off to Class, and then they'll take the placement test. And once you get a completed placement test from your student, you'll be email notified. And I'm going to show you what you get back from your students. So I'm going to go to this yellow student management button. This is where I manage my students in Off to Class. And I'm going to press on that. And here are all my students. I'm going to click on Jose. I know that Jose took the placement test recently. And here are Jose's placement test results. So I'm just going to click on them and open them up. And it's the placement test results that are the really powerful tool for onboarding new students. So in your first interaction with your students, what you could do is share their results. Share the results of the test that they sat. And when you're sharing the results, so at the top, you have a diagnostic of all the questions that that Jose answered, and you have a proficiency level. So here you can see that Jose is a B1, and this is a little bit of verbiage about what a B1 means. But more interesting than the level, we know that students are obsessed with levels, and some teachers are obsessed with levels as well. But more interesting than the level is this gap analysis here. So for every question that Jose got wrong or answered I don't know to, we list you the question, what the student entered, and what the right answer is. And then we go one step further. We even show you which lesson covers this student's deficiency from our library. So what a lot of teachers like to do on Off to Class, what I've seen that works really well, is during the trial lesson, you can use this gap analysis to explain the student's problems to the students, to your prospective student, better than anybody ever has before. Certainly better than a language school or a language institute ever has before. So you could sit here with Jose and say, yeah, you are currently a B1. Obviously, you've taken English before. Obviously, you've been through a number of courses, but you've got these ingrained fossilized errors at the A1 and the A2 level. And me as your language coach, as your personalized language solution, what we're going to do is we're going to first tackle these fossilized errors. And you'd be surprised, Jose has probably never had someone taking this approach with him. So Jose's probably going to be blown away that you've got a diagnostic of all these fossilized errors that track under his current level, and you're gonna teach Jose one by one. You're gonna cover lessons that completely deal with his ingrained fossilized errors. And I'll just show you. So Jose is tracking at a B1, but you can see here he's struggling with his object pronouns. So I like Sarah and Andrew likes Sarah. Blank both like blank. So Jose answered, we both like them. And obviously the right answer is we both like her. Her is referring to Sarah. So you can open up the object pronouns lesson directly by clicking this link right here. So I'm going to do that. And right away, the system asks me to enroll Jose in the lesson. I'm going to choose to enroll Jose in the lesson. And we are in the lesson content right away that deals with the deficiency from Jose's gap analysis. And you could start teaching him, or you could show him for illustrative purposes the lessons you're going to be using and the approach you're going to be taking to tackle Jose's fossilized errors. So this placement test and this gap analysis is really something I wanted to show you, because originally we didn't have the intention or the specific intention for the placement test to be used in this manner. But we found that a lot of teachers have started to use our placement tests as a way to onboard prospective students, and it can be quite powerful. So I'll just also show you that. So here we list all the challenges and fossilized errors that Jose has from the placement test. So these are all the questions and associated lessons for every time Jose answered incorrectly. These are all the lessons, all the questions and associated lessons for when Jose answered I don't know. And those lessons will also end up populating Jose's learning plan. So I'm just going to go back to student management here. And here's a list of all my students. When I click on Jose, this is Jose's profile in Off to Class. And you've got the lesson history tab down here. And next to it, you've got the learning plan. So after Jose comes on as a student, every time you teach Jose a lesson, you can launch the lessons directly off the learning plan. And as you enroll Jose into these lessons and teach the lessons off the learning plan, we'll remove them from the learning plan. So this helps you keep track of which lessons you've tackled from Jose's learning plan. And right now, this is primarily the placement test is primarily a grammar diagnostic, but we will develop in the future to also include speaking, reading, listening, the other competencies. But for now, you can cover the grammar from the learning plan with your student, and you can mix in from our library some of the other lessons, because there's only so much grammar that one student can take week in, week out, but you can mix in some of our listening activities, our speaking activities, and our reading activities. So that's really the crux of what I wanted to show you today. This is a tool. Our placement test is definitely a tool that teachers can use to sell themselves as a personalized approach, a personalized solution for students that are coming to them and looking for a private tutor. I think you'd be surprised if you try it out with some prospective students or with some existing students. I think you'd be surprised that concept of opening up the gap analysis and showing a tailored plan to a student to deal with their deficiencies, how amazed most students will be. Of course, you can't convert 100% of your leads into long-term paying customers, but we think this can drastically improve your conversion percentages. I don't have stats on that yet, but just from the reporting that comes back to me from teachers in the field that I'm in constant communication with, it seems to have a drastic effect on conversion rates into leads.
A question: if students have to buy access to the class.
Okay, so we're going to jump into the QA now. Just a reminder, in the top left of your screen, you can post questions to using the QA function. So the first question was, do students have to buy access to Off to Class to be able to access Off to Class? No, students do not need to purchase any access to Off to Class. So Off to Class works as a tool for ESL teachers. We don't even communicate with your students. We do not sell Off to Class as a self-study tool. This is purely a tool for ESL teachers to run their lessons and their placements. So the way it works is when I go to assign this test, I'm in charge as the teacher to set up the student account. So I would click on a prospective student button here. I'm going to send the test to a prospective student. And I set up the student account. So I set up the student credentials. I provide the student with a nickname, an email, and a password, and I'm delivered those credentials into my inbox as a teacher, and then I can share them with the student however I want. So the students do not need to buy any access. The accounts are completely controlled through the teacher. Oh, we've got a question from Jonathan here about branding the Off to Class page. Jonathan asks how he can brand the Off to Class page with his own business logo and how that works. So I'm going to show you a little bit more about that today. So this is a feature we're calling Pro, and it's a relatively new feature. So as you can see, there's a logo here. This is just a dummy logo that I got off the internet. So normally this would say Off to Class on it. But as a Pro subscriber, I'm able to input my own logo here, and my logo appears here. It also appears in the same place when students log into Off to Class. So I'm just going to log into Off to Class from one of my students' perspectives. So we've actually got a pretty cool feature here where you can log into Off to Class as your student. And this is a nice feature if your student is ever saying, I didn't get the placement test or I didn't get the homework. You can settle the issue right there and then with your student by logging into their account on their behalf. So I'm going to press login as your student. And as you can see in the top left, my logo is there. So the logo appears front and center when your students log into Off to Class. It also appears on homework assignments. So you can see up here is the logo. This would be your business logo here. And it also appears in the same position on placement tests. And the final place your logo appears is on your login pages. So if you come on as a pro subscriber, we actually generate unique URLs for you as a teacher. And you can take those URLs and embed them into your website or your social feeds. And when students click on those URLs to log into Off to Class with the credentials that you've provided them, your brand will also be front and center. So the entire experience from the student's perspective, from the moment they land on Off to Class to placement tests to homework assignments, is branded with your logo. And so any teacher can come on as a pro subscriber, and any plan on Off to Class can be converted to pro for a $150 setup fee. So that's how pro works.
There's a question regarding the canvas, if you could perhaps explain that.
Sure. So we've got a question here about the canvas feature. And I'm just going to show that right now. So the canvas feature is effectively a combination of a wiki as well as a live interactive whiteboard. And so I'm logged in again as a teacher, and I'm on the lesson library of Off to Class. And here you've got over 500 lessons that you can use to teach interactively with your students, to populate your lessons with. And each of these lessons comes with a canvas. So I'm going to launch Business One advertising today. I'm going to choose, I'm just browsing. And you've got the lesson content on the right and the teacher notes on the left. The lesson content is for me, is for the student, is for the lesson. The teacher notes are for me. The teacher notes sync with each slide, and they coach me on how to teach each lesson, each slide. And so at the start of the lesson, I would typically hide the teacher notes from my student by pressing this full screen button up here in the top right. And make some space for my teacher notes. So I can see the teacher notes right now while I'm hiding them from you, my students. And now the canvas, you'll notice there's a button up here in the top left of the classroom. And if I press that, I get taken into a canvas. So this is my interactive whiteboard. I've got a number of tools here. I've got a pen, I've got a text tool, I can upload images, and I can paste YouTube videos. And so when I say this can be used as both an interactive whiteboard and it can be used as a wiki, it's because you can choose to build this live with your students as you're going. If you need a little breakout space to explain the content that you're teaching, or you could populate this canvas before you teach the lessons. You could bring in all the images and YouTube videos and different things that you like to use to teach business English advertising, and you could have them sitting here and they'll automatically be saved. So every time you go to teach Business One advertising, your canvas will be saved. Likewise, every time you launch Present Simple 1, your canvas will be saved from the last time you populated it. And the really cool feature here is that at the end of the lesson, because I've enrolled my student in the lesson, they get delivered a copy of the canvas in their own student panel. So when they log in and review the lesson summary from the lesson, the last slide will be the canvas from the lesson. So it's a really nice way of personalizing your approach with your students. And like I said, everything gets saved here. So the next time you launch this lesson, you can access all of this again.
Can you explain embedding your URL? And also people have asked if you can embed our page in their website.
Yeah, absolutely. So embedding your URL, basically, let me just show you. So if you come on as a pro subscriber, I'm just going to go to my profile page. Oh, this is a bad example. Okay. If you came on as a Pro subscriber, you would see a button here that says Pro in your profile page. And if you click on Pro, you will find a unique URL. We will generate a URL for you that is specific to you as a teacher. And you can take that URL and put it anywhere you speak to your students or access your students. So what that means is you can put it on your website. You could put a button, students log in to my learning management system here. Or you could place it on your Facebook page. You could place it anywhere on any of your web properties or in any of your email communication. You could take that URL and place it. And what basically happens is when your students, then you can tell your students to click on this button when they have a homework assignment. And when your students go to complete homework, they'll go to a login page that is branded with your logo. Now, the other thing I should mention is when you come on as Pro, you will have your own unique URL that takes students to a branded login page. When you come on as Pro, there are a number of automated emails in Off to Class. So every time you assign homework to one of your students, you have the choice of using our notification system. So we can send them an automated email that says, log into Off to Class to complete the homework assignment your teacher has just assigned to you. We will automatically put your branded URL into those email communications. So you don't even have to think there. That unique login page will automatically be inserted into those unique pages. And as far as embedding your URL on your page, or if you want to advertise your use of Off to Class on your page, or whether it's on your website or your Facebook page, we just recently wrote a blog post. I'm going to go to the blog section of it's not an actual page in Off to Class yet, but it will become one soon. I'm on the blog section here of Off to Class, and if you go down a bit, yeah, it's the fourth post down. It's called the Off to Class promo kit. Here we have a number of downloads where you can take different pieces of text, different images, and different video files that we've prepared for you that you can download down here, and you can use these or adapt these for inserting into your own website. So once again, you can go to the blog page and look for the promo kit. And on the promo kit, you'll find a number of downloads where we provide you different text snippets and image ideas and link ideas that you can use to advertise your use of Off to Class to your students, to use your use of Off to Class as a way to sell yourself. So you can show to your students that you use a sophisticated student management system, that your students will have an online home where they can log in to complete homework assignments, to complete placements, which is a really nice feature as well. I mean, as selling yourself as a tutor, not only does the fee you pay me for a lesson, not only does that cover the interactive online lesson or the in-person lesson that we're going to be taking together, but between classes, you're going to be able to log into Off to Class and take your personalized homework assignments and take placement tests and receive lesson summaries for each lesson that you take with me. So it's a really nice selling feature for students, and that's why we developed this promo kit. We wanted to provide downloads for teachers to use.
Someone's just asked again about inserting a logo, so maybe you can quickly explain that.
Sure. We have another question on inserting the logo. So I've shown you where the logo will appear on Off to Class. I'm actually going to need to log in to another account that I have for off to class. So you guys are going to have to bear with me just for 1 second while I do that. So I'm going to show you where on off to class you actually go to upload your logo. Okay, so as I was mentioning, I'm going to go to our pricing page quickly here. Any account, so it doesn't matter what subscription you have, any account can be turned into a pro account. You can upgrade to pro at any time, and upgrading to pro happens on your profile page. So I've clicked on my profile page. The profile page, oh, sorry, I'm not sharing my screen right now. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, I'm going to start that again. Okay, I've logged into off to class. I'm going to go back to the pricing page because I wasn't sharing my screen at the time. And like I said, any of the accounts can be upgraded to pro. So it doesn't matter whether you're on a light, medium, or heavy account, whether you're a monthly subscriber or an annual subscriber. Any of the accounts can be upgraded to pro. And the place where that happens is on your profile page. So I'm going to click this pink profile button up here in the top menu. And here you'll notice that we have a tab called Pro. And if you click on Pro, this is where you can upgrade to Pro. I've already upgraded to Pro, but you'll see a button that says Upgrade to Pro. And if you press that, you can upgrade to Pro. And then this is what it will look like once you upgrade to Pro. And upgrading to Pro, once you do that, you can upload your logo. It's as simple as pressing this upload your logo button here. And I'm going to choose a file just off my desktop. Oh, I've got my other logo, so I'm going to choose that. And I'm going to press Save Logo. Are you sure? Yes. And now when I log out and log back in, my logo will appear in all those places that we mentioned. And the other important thing to mention here is this is also when you upgrade to Pro, this is where your unique URLs will be. So this is where you'll go to your profile tab here, and this is where your unique URLs will be placed. So do we have any other questions?
Can you explain that if somebody, just the idea that the test can be used with as many prospective students as possible,
Yeah.
and that it extends even if the subscription is not taken up?
Okay, so that's a very good point. So so as you know, Off to Class is a paid service. After a 30-day free trial, you need to come on as a subscriber if you want to continue using our lesson content and our homework assignments. But the placement test currently, even after your 30-day free trial, you can continue to send the placement test to prospective students. And students will be limited to just being able to take the placement test when they log into Off to Class. And when you log into Off to Class, if you're not a subscriber, your use will be limited to accessing their results. So you can still use us for our placement test functionality, even if you don't come on as a subscriber. And if another good point to mention is that in our plans, if you take a medium plan, for example, that gives you 4 students to teach on Off to Class. But you can send the placement test to additional students above your 4-student quota, and that won't count towards your student quota. We want teachers to use the placement test as a tool to onboard prospective students. So if you just send the placement test to a student, we don't count that as one of your student quota. Of course, if you're already at 4 students, you're maxed out on the number of students that you can teach our lessons and send homework to, but you can send additional students to placement tests.
Okay, maybe you can also just quickly explain that the placement test, sometimes students hurry through it or misread questions, so the reason we've got that it can be easily reassigned.
Okay, yeah, so James brings up an important QA point, so often students will rush through a test. They won't fully read the questions. They'll just try to get through it. And when you get back their results, and when you go over the results with the student, it will be obvious that the student didn't take the right amount of time, and the results aren't reflective of their true English ability. So you can then reassign the test to your student. If you both come to the conclusion that really your student needs to sit the test again, you can reassign the test to your student. So when I click on assign test here, if I'm reassigning to a student that's already registered in the system to a student that's already taken the test, instead of assigning it to a prospective student, I'm going to assign it to an existing student because I've already registered this student. They've already sat the test. So you would just choose from one of your existing students, like Emily, for example, and click send. And so there's no need to set up the account again. Everything's set up. Your student is registered. You can reassign, again, by choosing to send to an existing student. And the test pulls off a database of 800 questions. So it's 100 questions off a database of 800 questions. So your student won't notice many repeated questions at all. Some of the questions are designed to look the same, but they aren't. So which of the following answers is correct versus which of the following answers is incorrect. And that's specific to make sure that your students are reading the questions properly and taking the time to properly complete the placement test.